Well, it's the perfect time for someone like me to make an introduction to how I design motion graphics inside Unreal Engine. But I'm also going to pay homage to the GOAT Ben Marriott and try and do it in under 10 minutes. I'm going to assume that you know After Effects really well, you've installed Unreal Engine, and you've installed my motion graphics default template. All it means is that you'll be able to choose it from the new project dialog, and it'll make your life a lot easier, trust me. So once you've started a new project using my template and it's finished loading, this is what you first see when you open up Unreal. Unreal actually opens up a default comp, but of course in Unreal they're called levels. So we don't need to create a new comp, but whereabouts in the project is it? Well, to see our project, let's look for the content browser. And then you can see that we are inside Content, Comps, Example, and inside Level for the moment. That's where our default comp or level is. To stay organized, we're going to create a new folder called Assets. And inside here, I'm just going to drag in the assets from our asset pack, which include an SVG icon and a texture. Now, the cool thing about SVG icons is that they come in as 3D objects inside Unreal. So let's click and drag it into our viewport, and man, it's so tiny. First of all, let's just make sure we're looking through our camera by clicking camera and choosing, well, there's only one. Yep, that looks a lot better. And yes, there's our little thumb. So we're going to select it, make sure we hit R for scale, make sure that's locked. I'm going to set it to 7. Yep, look, that'll work for the moment. Okay, I'm going to select it, hit W for move, and then I'm just going to move it down. Now, there's a lot of snapping going on. In Unreal, there's actually a whole bunch of systems for snapping. I'm just going to turn these 3 off, and that will help us, not get confused by a few things. Over here on the top right-hand side of screen, you can see that there is a Motion Design Outliner. And this shows you everything that you need to know. You can see our thumbs up, you can see the text, you can also see that there is a studio and a color calibrator. Those ones are kind of cluttering up the space, so I'll definitely delete that one. I'll leave the stage for the moment. To animate anything inside Unreal, you have to drag it from the outliner into the sequencer. That's the timeline inside Unreal. Or you can select an object, move to the point at which you want to set a keyframe, and hit S. That will create a track in sequencer and create a transform keyframe, which includes location, rotation, and scale. I'm going to move to the beginning of the sequence, move this down and to the left, and I'm going to hit R again for scale, set that to 0, and I'm going to select the transform, hit S again, and then hit space to play back. And in the words of Ben Marriott,
it's simple, but it's definitely animated, and no one can take that away from you.
I just want to play back this section of the animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the beginning, hit I, and then move to about here and hit O, and we've created these blue lines which are our selection. Down in our playback controls, you can see this loop playback range icon. I'm going to click that a couple of times until it gets to loop selection range. And now when I play back, it will just play back the selection that we've made. I'm going to select my text, move to here. I think I'll do the same kind of animation, but in this case, I'm going to hit W for move, hold down Control, and hit both mouse buttons to drag it up off screen. And if I hit S and then play, looks good. While I've got the text selected, I'm going to change it to the answer you can give your boss when she asks you if you can animate in Unreal. Yes, I can. The animation still looks a bit clunky. In After Effects, this is where I'd head for the graph editor. And you can do that inside Unreal. It's just here called the curve editor. But I'm going to select the keyframes and I'm going to use this preset selection and choose exponential. Now that I'm playing back, I can move the keyframes and give it a bit of an overshoot bounce. Yep, happy with that. So I'm going to select my text and choose exponential ease out. Yep, I'm pretty happy with all of that. Just to add a little bit of life to the idle, I'm going to select my camera and I'm going to use one of the new animation features inside Unreal Engine 5.4. Up here, there is a tab called the Operator Stack. You can choose Animators, click plus, and then I'm going to hover over Wiggle and go to Rotation. And really quickly, I'm going to come down and change the global magnitude to 0.001 because that default is just a little bit much. Okay, still feels a little bit cluttered. So going back to our Motion Design Outliner, I'm going to select our stage and hit delete. Just at that moment, the boss has walked past and said, "Oh, look, I love it, but it really needs a bit of a background. Can you just chuck something in there, maybe a space scene or something like that? Could you put some of our brand colors over the top? You know, just a couple of nice little gradients." And you say, "Yes, I can." So we're going to click and drag our space into the scene, and it's blocking everything. What just happened? Well, it created a rectangle and put a texture over it, and it opened up this window called Material Designer. I'm going to move this out of the way just for a second, and I'm going to move my rectangle to the back of the scene. Now, Unreal axes are weird. X is forward and back, Y is left and right, Z is up and down. It's all bananas. We're just going to really quickly move this back behind things, and we're going to use our align actors to align horizontally and vertically. I'm also going to use that to stretch and fill the screen. I might just up the scale a little bit so that when the camera moves, it doesn't sort of disappear. But now, yep, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to come to my Material Designer and start adding those gradients that the boss asked for. Now this interface is going to look familiar to anyone who's used Photoshop. What we're going to do is come down to Add New Layer, and we're going to start with a solid color to add our first brand color, which is a light pink. And now to do a gradient, we just select the opacity, and we're going to change that to the radial gradient. Now to move it around, we just need to toggle the UV link off, and we're going to click it again to get the controls, and we can move it around like this. Okay, just a very, very slight one. Add a new layer. Again, we're going to go solid color. This time, just a nice teal. And again, we're going to create a radial gradient, and we're going to toggle it off so that we can move it around. And this one, I'm actually going to scale up, and I'm going to set the blend mode to add. And over here, I'm also going to set the blend mode to add, and I might just set the opacity down to 0.4. Finally, I'm just going to select the text, and same kind of thing. I'm just going to change the color by scrolling down to where it says style. I'm going to change the custom material to solid, and tick is unlit. Now we can see our very own animation. So your boss loves it, but she asks, is there anything that we could do to make it just a little bit more Ben Marriott? And you think for a second, and then you realize you know exactly what to do. Click on the process volume and add more bloom, and let's just go to 12 frames per second and click lock to display rate at runtime. That'll do it. All we got to do now is render it out. To do that, we just click on this clapperboard here to add our sequence to the movie render queue. And I'm going to change the preset to something at UHD resolution that outputs a ProRes file 4444. Now, I've created a preset for that, and all you need to do is name the job something that you'll recognize instead of example comp. Yes, I can 01. Click out to make sure that it registers over here in the job, and click Render Local. And that was an introduction to Unreal in under 10 minutes. But we have barely scratched the surface when it comes to Unreal Engine. It is a gigantic piece of software. Recently, I've started teaching Unreal to small classes of motion designers, people who are way more familiar with After Effects than Cinema 4D. So same kind of idea of the video, but I can slow things down and I can go into much more depth with all of the topics. What I've decided to do is take the same content that I'm teaching in these classes, edit it down, and yeah, release it for everybody on Gumroad. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, there's going to be a link somewhere on screen and in the description with more information. Also, if you've made it this far and you haven't liked and subscribed, I mean, why not? I really like making these videos, and those two things, they let me know that people are coming along for the ride. So, yeah, cheers.